So in just a few hours from now, India's Prime Minister will be delivering his speech at the 76th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Prime Minister Modi arrived in New York from Washington, D.C. after holding his first bilateral engagement with US President Joe Biden in the White House and also attended the historic first in-person Quad summit. In a statement just before leaving for the United States, the Prime Minister said that he'll be concluding his visit with an address at the United Nations General Assembly focusing on the global challenges including the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the need to combat terrorism, development in the Indo-Pacific, and the Prime Minister is also expected to draw attention to possible reforms within the United Nations Security Council itself. The theme for this year's general debate is building resilience through hope to recover from COVID, rebuild sustainably and also respond to the needs of the planet. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, T.S. Tirumurthy, said on Monday that Prime Minister Modi's speech at the UNGA is going to be one of the most awaited speeches amongst the many world leaders. A total of about 109 heads of governments are addressing the general debate in person, and about 60 of them will be delivering speeches through pre-recorded video statements. Last year, the UNGA session was held virtually due to COVID-19 pandemic. All right, now to give us more insights as to what can be expected later this evening, we are joined by India's former ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Arun Singh, who is joining us on this broadcast. Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Singh, for joining us on WION here. And let me begin by asking you this. We've seen the very first in-person meeting, the bilateral engagement that the Indian Prime Minister had with the American President. Now, this perhaps is one of the, in many ways, with Quad having come into existence, this is the closest that India has been with the United States. Long gone is the strategy of non-alignment. Now we seem to be more firmly tilting towards the United States. What do you make of this?
So I wouldn't agree with that. I think certainly we don't hear non-alignment articulated so often, but we do hear strategic autonomy being articulated repeatedly. And I think the thrust of the effort is that India builds relations with all the major poles in the world and maintains space for being able to take its own decisions in its own interest. And clearly, in today's context, it serves India's interest to also have a strong partnership with the United States. Because if you look at what people describe as comprehensive national interests, the United States is our leading trading partner. And we have a surplus in our trade with the US. The United States is also the single largest country host of Indian origin diaspora at more than 4 million. As some of them have done very well. And now we have a Vice President of the United States who is partly of Indian origin. The US is an important technology partner, a growing defense cooperation partner. And again, the largest number of Indian students in the universities abroad are also in the United States, which then leads to building new frameworks of partnership. So there is a certain convergence of interest that we have in the United States, including in terms of the challenges that everyone is facing from the economic, technological and military rise of China. So it is that convergence which is promoting more and more cooperation between India and the US bilaterally and in other frameworks, including the Quad. But India has other relationships. For example, Russia. US has a difficult relationship with Russia. But for India, Russia is a very important partner, important defense partner, important energy partner, and a partner that has supported India historically on many political issues when India has been under challenge. So again, that's a relationship that India makes an effort to maintain. So I think we should really look at it, that India building relations with different major players in the world and maintaining the autonomy of its decisions.
All right, that's a very interesting insight. I mean, strategic autonomy that India is in fact looking for. Now, one of the other things that a lot of people around the world are looking forward to is the Indian Prime Minister's address at the 76th UNGA. Now, we heard the Pakistani Prime Minister speak. He touched a lot upon India. That was almost the takeaway from his address. Now, when the Indian Prime Minister steps up to speak today, do you expect any kind of a response that can be expected?
So I don't think so. So if you saw, and you played a clip of that, the Indian First Secretary at the Indian Mission at the UN which is sort of a mid-level official, came out with a very sharp, strong and decisive response to what the Pakistan Prime Minister said. So, it's a message that is the level at which we will respond to the Pakistan Prime Minister. And having done that and having set the record straight, there is no need now for the Indian Prime Minister to respond to what the Pakistan Prime Minister had said and get into any kind of a bilateral issue. Because I think the projection would be that India is much larger than that. And that Pakistan is at best, a minor irritant that one has to deal with. But India has objectives, strategies that go way beyond Pakistan. And certainly, the Prime Minister will talk about COVID, how India is tackling that, what we are doing in terms of cooperation we bring to the world, including in terms of vaccines that are going to be provided in the framework of the Quad. I'm sure he will touch upon issues related to climate change. He will touch upon issues related to technology. For example, if you saw in the outcome document that came out after the Quad summit, there's a separate statement that the four leaders put out on issues related to technology. What should be norms governing technology? Because increasingly, the way we live, the way we work is all going to be defined by technology. So it's important to set that framework. So I think, and certainly I'm sure Prime Minister will talk about the challenges from terrorism, especially in the wake of what has happened in Afghanistan with the Taliban, gaining control through force, designated terrorist groups being a part of the governance structure there. And therefore this whole dilemma, how does the world accept a structure that has terrorist elements as part of it? And what does the world do to deal with enablers of these structures? So those are the kind of broad themes that I'm sure the Prime Minister will touch upon and not get down into the kind of nitpicking that the Pakistan Prime Minister got himself involved in.
All right, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Singh, for joining us and getting us all those updates. It, of course, remains to be seen, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi, of course, steps up to speak at the UNGA as to what issues he'll be touching upon. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.